Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Educator's Voice. I'm your host, Sochita, and today we are diving into a topic that is both deeply personal and critically important for our community. We're on episode 47, and today we're talking about something that often hides in the shadows of our classrooms: teacher burnout.
It's a heavy topic, Sochita, but one that couldn't be more timely. Thank you for having me back to talk about this. It's something I've seen and felt throughout my 20 years in the classroom.
I think that's why your perspective is so vital today, Mr. Severoon. You've been in the trenches. Before we get into the how and the why, can we just acknowledge how it feels? When a teacher is truly burnt out, it's not just being tired, is it?
No, it's far beyond physical tiredness. It's an emotional exhaustion that feels like you're running on an empty tank, and every time you try to refill it, there's a leak you can't find. You start to feel detached, almost like you're watching yourself teach from a distance. And that spark, the reason you started teaching in the first place, feels like it's been extinguished.
That sounds so isolating. I've heard teachers describe it as the Sunday scaries, but for every single day of the week. What do you think are the primary causes that drive us to that point? Is it the workload, or is it something deeper?
It's a combination, but I think the hidden curriculum of teaching is a huge factor. It's not just the 6 hours with the students. It's the 3 hours of grading, the endless emails, the administrative paperwork, and the emotional labor of carrying our students' trauma. We are often expected to be social workers, psychologists, and parents, all while meeting high-stakes testing goals.
The emotional labor. That's such a powerful phrase. We pour so much of ourselves into these kids. When the system doesn't pour back into us, the imbalance becomes unsustainable. I've noticed that for many, the cause is also this culture of yes, where teachers feel they can't set boundaries without being seen as not dedicated.
Exactly. We're told, do it for the kids, and that phrase is often used as a tool to push teachers past their breaking points. But if the teacher isn't well, the kids aren't getting the best version of that education. One of the biggest causes I see now is the lack of autonomy, feeling like you're just a cog in a machine rather than a professional with expertise.
Let's talk about the effects, because burnout doesn't stay at school, does it? It follows you home. It affects your family, your health, your very sense of self. How have you seen this manifest in the long term for educators?
It breaks my heart to see it. Physically, you see chronic headaches, sleep disorders, even compromised immune systems. Mentally, it leads to a sense of cynicism. You start to see students as problems to be managed rather than lives to be shaped. And once that cynicism sets in, the quality of instruction drops, and the teacher eventually leaves the profession altogether. We're losing brilliant minds because they simply can't breathe anymore.
It's a tragedy for the education system, but I want to shift our focus to hope, because I know there are ways to fight back. For our listeners who are feeling that weight right now, what are some prevention strategies? How do we reclaim our fire?
The first step is what I call radical boundaries. You have to realize that saying no to an extra committee or a weekend grading session is actually saying yes to your longevity in this career. I started a rule: no school emails after 6 p.m. It was hard at first, but the world didn't end and my mental clarity returned.
Smiling. Radical boundaries. I love that. It's about reclaiming your time. I also think peer support is huge. Having a venting partner, someone you can be honest with without judgment, can be a literal lifesaver. But we also need to talk about what schools can do, right? It shouldn't all be on the individual teacher.
Absolutely. Self-care is not a substitute for systemic change. Schools need to provide actual mental health resources, reduce unnecessary administrative tasks, and truly listen when teachers say they are overwhelmed. We need wellness days that aren't stigmatized. We need to foster an environment where a teacher's well-being is viewed as a prerequisite for student success, not an afterthought.
Thoughtfully, if a teacher is listening right now and they feel like they're right on the edge of that cliff, what's the one thing you'd want them to do tonight?
I would tell them, walk away from the laptop. Go for a walk, hug your family, or just sit in silence. Remind yourself that you are a human being who happens to be a teacher, not a teaching machine that happens to be a human. You are enough, even if the to-do list isn't finished.
That is so powerful, Mr. Severoon. You are a human being first. I think we all needed to hear that. As we wrap up this episode, I want to remind our listeners that burnout isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you've been trying to be strong for too long without support. Well said, Sochita. To all my colleagues out there, breathe. You're doing incredible work, but you can only pour from a full cup. Take care of yourselves first. Brightly, thank you so much for joining us for episode 47. We hope these strategies and reflections give you a bit of air today. Join us next week as we discuss building resilient classrooms. Until then, stay well and keep your heart for teaching, but keep your heart for yourself too. Good night, everyone.
Good night and take care.